Oh, there's a goal!
The NHL season is hitting a stretch that will demand so much out of players, coaches, and fans alike. Games nearly every other day in a mad dash to the finish. And then the mountain only gets steeper with playoff hockey. Do you know what will help you get to this fantastic prize along with other events? That would be the sponsor of this video, SeatGeek. I've been working with them for what seems like an age, and I've been using their app even longer. Live events are slowly coming back into view with the summertime upon us. You know what that includes, right? Playoff hockey. The greatest spectacle of the sports year in my unbiased opinion. SeatGeek sorts all tickets available on a 1 to 10 scale and are color-coded for ease of use. Green means good, red means bad, but there really isn't a bad seat in a modern arena, right? SeatGeek isn't just for hockey, but for any sport, concert, or event that requires a ticket to get in. So let's just say you wanted tickets to The Weeknd, Tyler the Creator, John Mayer, or any performer you can think of? SeatGeek can get you there while helping you not get screwed on fake tickets. You should all know by now to use the code word TREE in the link below to save $20 off your first purchase. Live events are a spectacle to be cherished, and SeatGeek is your aid in helping you get the most out of them. Speaking of that, how does the NHL wish to get to that point? It's only polite to start things off with the Stanley Cup champions and eternal mockers of the congrats video aging like cheese in a desert, the Tampa Bay Lightning. They're gunning for a three-peat, a very challenging task. There's no denying Tampa Bay has talent, but they need to flesh out their lineup for the playoffs. They need versatility and sandpaper, the costs be damned. With two men, they hope they have found their new Coleman and Goodrow. Brandon Hagel and Nick Paul. Both should be worthwhile contributors to the cause, but they cost a premium and a half to get. Hagel himself cost 2 firsts and 2 NHL regulars in Taylor Radish and Boris Tkachuk. However, he is under contract for the next few seasons at an affordable rate, and his scoring touch should be critical for their depth. Nick Paul is a bit cheaper, but the same dilemma, costing a 4th in Matthew Joseph. It's much easier to swallow when you realize the players traded were never going to get a chance to properly develop on the top 6. So they assessed the situation and made the moves to get them ready for the big dance. I'd say it was good work for what it's worth. They're gonna need it in the division they're in. The Panthers are an outfit that have few rivals to their might. However, one of them happens to be in the same damn state. It doesn't matter if they are already great, they need more. With Aaron Ekblad out until the postseason, they will be tested even if it's not the worst-case scenario. Men like Robert Haig and Ben Sherratt were added to the back end. Analytics outright despise them, which is why Sherratt cost a first-rounder and other futures. However, that isn't important in the grand scheme. What does is Claude Giroux. For far too long, he's been forced to toil on terrible flyer squads while the team around him spews watery bile onto the ice. Today, however, that will change. He guided Philly right towards the Panthers for a trade, where he will be plopped on a line with Barkov or Huberdeau. And it cost them next to nothing to do. I don't know how, but a deadly forward core just got even deadlier. There are no excuses for Florida this season. They must get it done, regardless of human cost. If they don't, they become a mockable target like this next team. I always felt like something was up with Toronto, even during their strong stretch. It somehow didn't feel sustainable. I could look at stat sheets and analytical charts for ages and still be unconvinced of their power. As of the past few months, we've found the major flaw in their plan. Team goaltending has fallen to absolute shit. It's gone from a surprising strength to their biggest liability in nearly every contest. It's not even passable at this level. They can't make a save, they can't hold a lead. Things have gotten insanely dire on this front. Jack Campbell has fallen off the map, costing himself millions of dollars this offseason. Not to mention that he's injured for a few weeks. Peter Mrazek has unleashed bad Peter Mrazek from slumber. And he's been so well received that he was put on waivers. And not claimed by anyone. With injuries starting to take hold, the Leafs brought another local boy home. Mark Giordano. He's not what he was, but him and Colin Blackwell should be good to shore up the depth. And they didn't have to trade a first-round pick to do it. Too bad it does nothing about the goaltending, which the plan was to sign Harry Sateri from Europe, before he was claimed by Arizona off waivers. Now it's hope to God someone gains form in net, even if it's David fucking Ayers. If they fail again, Kyle Dubas is having his office cleaned out by means of throwing his stuff off the balcony. I wonder if he can have a higher save percentage than his goalies. The Bruins never die. As often as you'd think they'd seem to be starting to taper off, they'll find great form and have us all questioning fate itself. We thought they were merely okay earlier in the year. This was before a sudden hot streak deep into February that has them knocking on Toronto and Tampa's door. We thought Jake DeBrusk was going to be on his way out. Little did we all know that he would revive to past form and sign an extension with the team. He wasn't traded. We thought Boston wouldn't break the bank for anything this year with how everything was going. Enter Hampus Lindholm. He struggled a bit this season, but his talent is undeniable. To get him, they need to open the vault. I think it's safe to say the metric shit ton they traded is roughly opening several vaults. And then they keep opening those vaults to give him an 8-year extension sight unseen. It's fair value for a second-pairing defenseman, but it's highly risky. Now, only if I had 100% confidence that Patrice Bergeron was going to be re-signed, I'd have more hope. Perhaps they should have tried to do something to fix their lack of center depth. All that's left to do is keep forming chemistry and shore up a few faults. The Atlantic is a death march. It's not to say that the Metro is a place of cakewalks and joke opponents. On the contrary, there are 4 teams fighting for a place at the table of the elite. Leading the way right now is Carolina, who are still playing with a form that's been teased in the past. Their wave of success has led them to keep pushing for true greatness. Jesperi Kotkaniemi, their eternal trophy from winning the Battle of Aho, was extended for 8 more years of taunting Montreal. As for help at the deadline, the choice for them was in Max Domi. He fell out of favor in Columbus, and he didn't cost much, so if he sucks, whatever, it was worth a shot. Same goes for the Rangers, who are second in tow right now. New York is emerging, but the goal for them was to solidify the depth in bottom 6. With the likes of Andrew Kopp, Tyler Mott, Frank Vatrano, and Justin Braun, they have accomplished just that. Kopp and Mott should instantly aid the bottom 6. Vatrano is solid scoring depth, and Braun is a viable defender in his own right. The future's cost wasn't steep either. As long as Shesterkin keeps up his torrid pace, New York should be a viable opponent. The same might be said for Pittsburgh, but the Penguins were in a bit of a pickle with the salary cap on a roster with some holes. Nobody was able to score alongside Evgeny Malkin, and this year is critical in their juncture. Nathan Beaulieu isn't enough. They must make a splash. And they did with Ricard Raquel, who should move right to Malkin's wing. The price was steep, but the Penguins may not get another chance after this. Especially with Malkin, Letang, and Rust potentially hitting free agency this offseason. For the Caps, they went for more of a nostalgic approach. Johan Larsson is a good get for the bottom 6, but look who they brought back! Mojo! The real one, not the imitator they have now. If Johansson could find his form with Washington again, he will be a tremendous asset. The 4 Metro playoff contenders are all but set, but there is still much to fight for. Positioning is critical. None of them will make it easy on the other. Which is good news for the rest of us, but not for any of the teams in question. Figured even for their shitty season, Philadelphia would at least get the deadline correct. To the shock of almost no one, this was botched as well. I'll give them a pass for Claude Giroux. He was the franchise face for almost a decade, and the Flyers squandered a good chunk of his career. Philly was never going to sign him, but he had control of where he wanted to go thanks to his no-movement clause. There were probably significantly better deals on the table, but Giroux wanted to go to Florida. Flyers had no leverage. Therefore, they only receive a first, a third, and an Owen Tippett who is obsolete in Florida's system. It doesn't matter if Tippett reaches his potential, it's still a bad look in a year full of them. The only other things they did were trade depth pieces for mid-round picks. But do you want to know what's funnier than throwing significant futures for Rasmus Ristolainen? Doubling down on said foolish decision by extending him for 5 more years. The rest of the Metro celebrates your desperation. Your rivals congratulate you on this decision. The rest of the Eastern Conference was a combination of shrewd selling and people who didn't know what the hell they were doing. If you're someone like Detroit, you're probably happy with yourself. Solid returns for the likes of Nick Leddy and depth pieces, while keeping Tyler Bertuzzi is a plus for them, even if their consistency is next to nothing these days. On the other hand, you get the Islanders, who did nothing. They extended Cal Clutterbuck and Zach Parise. That was it. Okay. Columbus was in the same boat, but at least they can argue their team is young and got something for Max Domi. What about New Jersey? What did they do besides stand pat? They must have not liked the prices being offered for their players. Maybe you're someone like a Montreal who got really nice hauls for the pieces they sold as predicted, especially the Lehkonen and Sherratt returns. Very solid. It's been a rough year, but they can finally begin to clean up from the horrible storm. Can you say the same for Ottawa and Buffalo? Buffalo didn't have much to trade and are still trying to build from nothing, so I'll let them go for now. Ottawa, though? Not just selling cheap pieces, but they traded a third-round pick for Travis Hamonic, who was on waivers a few months ago? Do they think it's 2018 or something? I don't get it. We can at least get what Colorado is trying to do. Bolster everything they can to get past the dreaded second round. Lest they become the next great meme of the hockey world, the Avs know they cannot squander this golden opportunity. The team they present is excellent. However, that doesn't mean anything if they shit the bed come playoff time. When everyone else adds, they must counter with more adding. Josh Manson from Anaheim to further solidify the defensive core, fortunately at a discounted rate. The second piece is Arturi Lehkonen from Montreal. He cost a good bit more. Think one of their better prospects in Justin Barron. Add a second rounder to that. Very steep bill for a middle six forward, but it's a pay-to-play game. Getting more size and grit in the bottom six with Nico Sturm and Andrew Cogliano is useful as well, but the goal has always been the same. Playoff success. There is nothing else to be said. We'll speak further in April. Minnesota, on the other hand, isn't as formidable as Colorado, but they have the potential to make noise if everything goes according to plan. They will be fucked by the Suter and Parise buyouts next year, so the time is now. It has to be. And they need to secure a top prize to have any chance at glory. For this, something a bit out of left field, but is an instant upgrade in net. Marc-Andre Fleury. Flower is free from the bullshit of Chicago, and adds needed prestige to a Wild team eager to upend the top dogs in the West. It did cost them Capo Kakkonen due to him being obsolete, but Jacob Middleton was fetched from San Jose to add to the defensive core. Add a Tyson Jost in the hopes that he lives up to his first-round pedigree, and you have an intriguing group. Minnesota is trying to make themselves known, and they might be running out of time, especially against their rivals in the Central. St. Louis and Nashville are in the same tier as Minnesota. Solid teams that aren't considered to be creme de la creme, but can make deep runs if everything clicks into place. Both of these squads know this and act accordingly. I do object to the moves they've made, though. The Blues, in their quest to shore up the defensive pairings, traded for Nick Leddy. That's great, if this were 2 seasons ago. Leddy has been awful in Detroit, and the price they paid was very steep, including a defenseman who played well when Bennington was in net. Pretty bold for a gamble, I'd say. Nothing else done, however, so it's the pray things catch fire like 2019 routine. The Preds are in the same style of thinking. A renaissance from key players and young prospects has put them back in an intriguing position. In Yusei they trust, and they confirmed it by acquiring defensive help in Jeremy Lauzon. For a second-round pick. A second. For Jeremy Lauzon. Is this what we've come to these days? I don't mind Lauzon, but for that price? I'd puke more than if Philip Forsberg is allowed to walk in free agency over the summer. By the way, good luck on that front. For the teams caught in the middle, like the Stars and Jets, they want to believe that they're still relevant in the grand scheme, but are ignorant. They fail to realize that their windows are fading, and would be best selling off assets. I'll give Winnipeg credit, they somewhat tried to do this. They got a nice haul for Andrew Kopp, however, they decided to bring back Mason Appleton and trade for Zach Sanford. The Jets are a mess, and this deadline is just confirming it. They don't know where to go, so they're just drifting away, hoping for a miracle. Dallas is worse off. They're keeping John Klingberg because they're close to a playoff spot, yet fail to understand that their goaltending situation is a bit bleak. Anton Khudobin and Braden Holtby are both on LTIR, so they brought in Scott Wedgwood as an emergency option. After that quick fix, another defense-first third-liner in Vladislav Nemesnikov, because the Stars don't have enough of that in their lineup. I get the predicament. If they realized the truth and sold at the deadline, everyone was getting fired. Dallas is trying to save jobs, but it's at the expense of their future. I'd be careful. Limbo is the same torture that the Red Wings had for years. Jim Nill should know this. Let's go on to more positive situations, like Calgary. I don't know how it happened, but we're finally seeing it. The Calgary Flames are playing up to their potential. Incredibly shitty puns aside, the Flames are on a hot streak that hasn't been seen in a good bit. Everything is humming like a bird. Daryl Sutter hasn't been a fossil his first year, but adaptive and the right coach for the situation. They look like contenders. Holy shit, Calgary, you did it! You stopped underachieving! Everyone give them a round of applause. I will be impressed at their run, but I'll say the same thing I said to Toronto. Win a playoff series, and then we'll discuss your cup ambitions. With them bringing in the likes of Tyler Toffoli and Kalle Youngkrook, I'm confident they can put up a valiant effort in doing so. They're going to do this, right? It won't be like 2019 again. Please say it won't. Vegas is a cautionary tale. They are what happens when you go to the casino too often and keep doubling down on your losses in an attempt to hit the jackpot. You pray for miracles, but regardless of what you do, you go bust. On paper, the Knights are a good team, but that's if everything goes according to plan. The problem is that it hasn't. They're absolutely wrecked. A strong majority of their core is injured, some of them long-term. Vegas doesn't have anywhere near the depth to compensate for it due to years of all-in pushes that have failed. Jack Eichel is back from surgery, but it's nowhere near enough. What do they do in net? Robin Lehner might be out for the rest of the season. And while it'd be awful nice to have someone like Fleury, he isn't here to save you. Mark Stone was put on LTIR for reasons of cap circumvention. And their next move was to try and finagle more cap space. Evgeny Dadonov was supposed to go to Anaheim with a second-round pick for John Moore and Ryan Kessler's contract. However, there was a problem. Evgeny has a limited no-trade clause in his contract. Anaheim was a team on that list. Legal wrangling continued on for days. Dadonov was adamant that the list was given to the Knights. But Vegas played dumb and tried to get it passed on a technicality. Regardless of which team was at fault, the NHL did not buy their excuse. The trade was voided. I'd love to be a fly on the wall for the awkward reunion with the guy they tried to trade with a draft pick just to get rid of. They needed that cap space too. Now the Knights are in a sharp skid and seemingly ripe for the carrion birds. All they've done is fuck over players and now they're the ones getting fucked. Nobody in the hockey world feels sympathy for their plight. I believe we should support the real victim in this saga. Ryan Kessler's contract. I feel like Edmonton, LA, and Vancouver didn't do all that much to change what they were at the deadline. The Oilers still have goaltending issues, but are still trying in vain to solidify team depth. The next bodies to add on to the burning pile are 2018 Trade Deadline prize Derek Brassard and Brett Kulak, third-pairing defensemen extraordinaire. They have been on a nice hot streak as of late, though. It's at least something. LA cannot say the same thing. They didn't do much of anything besides a few minor league trades. This is also considering that they're infected with the same thing Vegas has. Their lineup, particularly their defensive core, is getting picked off by injury one by one. Fortunately, the Kings are still doing well. I guess that's why they chose to stand pat. Vancouver is in a strange spot as well. They are still paying for the sins of their early struggles, and playoff models have no faith in their efforts, but they're still only a couple points out of a spot. Guys like JT Miller, Brock Besser, and Connor Garland were being thrown around in rumors, but none of them were moved. They simply brought in Travis Dermott from Toronto and traded Tyler Mott and Travis Hamonic. So no real damage done. Is it the right move? Maybe, but they're in a better spot than they were 4 months ago. Although that's not saying much. Taking up the caboose of the Western Conference, we have Anaheim, Arizona, Seattle, and San Jose. You may be asking, wasn't Anaheim doing well this season? Why are they on this list? That answer is quite simple. They're not only tumbling down the cliff, they're riding down the mine shaft of hell. It was a promising start, but this freefall shows us that the Ducks aren't ready for prime time just yet. However, they got solid returns for what they surrendered. Hampus Lindholm got a haul. But you just wonder what they could have gotten if they traded Josh Manson and Rickard Rakell a few years earlier. They'd have been salivating at the opportunity for it. Even then, what's done is done, and they did well, all things considered. San Jose? What can you say about them? They're a lost cause. They're trapped in a prison of their own doing. And while some players have revived themselves, it still isn't enough due to a combination of factors. Tomas Hertl was going to be a free agent, but with the windfall from Evander Kane's release, he received the time-honored tradition of Doug Wilson. An 8-year extension. The bells of long-term security ring out in joy. For Tomas is an excellent player worthy of it. In hindsight, Seattle was overhyped thanks to the massive success Vegas had and is experiencing typical expansion woes. Fortunately, they were able to sell off quite a few pieces and nab a decent number of future picks. Not to mention, Jared McCann's played well enough to be extended to a 5x5. I like him. Good work. They can sleep at night by saying, at least I'm not Arizona. Yes, they're still selling off whatever isn't stuck to the floor, but they have managed to keep Phil Kessel to themselves. It's too bad he won't be able to enjoy the new college stadium that ASU is building. They will be playing in that stadium for at least 3 years? The Tempe proposal hasn't even been approved yet. What the fuck are you doing? But wait a second, they managed to get solid futures like Jack McBain, Nathan Smith, and Brian Little's contract. things may still be okay for them. Maybe. And that's a rather underwhelming trade deadline for what it's worth. I don't know, I feel like I'm missing something in all of this. Probably not.
Even on the road, Dean Evason pretty skilled at getting the matchups he wants, and this is a shutdown line, maybe the best in the league.
I would describe this for you, but we all just saw it. Nedeljkovic looking to bat it away himself. It's an own goal.